Hi, and welcome to the Your Story Studios podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things content creation. And today on the show, I'm joined by Will, and today we are talking about the business side of being a creative. Tell me about it, Will.
It's tough because they don't teach you about the business side when you're being all arty and creative. It's definitely something that's been a hard, fast learning curve since becoming a director. Previously, when I was in departments with other people, you'd have other people to bounce off. There's an organisation back in the UK, Bec2, they would set the rates for what kind of production you were on. You would try and stick to those. Everyone would kind of, you've got to stick to your rates on the, And so you would, because you'd be scared of those guys telling you off for not doing it. So there was a good kind of structure there. So you knew what you were doing. And also you were just kind of, not to belittle it in any way, but if you're a camera assistant, you are just you are involved in assisting that department and the parameters and everything that goes around that. You're not involved in the bigger scope of the whole project. So then as a director and filmmaker and going into, running, co-producing on shoots, it becomes a bigger thing of suddenly learning someone, especially your first few, and someone says, how much would it cost to do that? And initially you're like, I don't know. I just hope you give me loads of money and then we can make it, but people don't want to give you loads of money and hope you make it. So it's definitely learning that side of things is a big, steep learning curve, but also it's something that I found that won't ever have like a fixed value to it. It will always change. And what people want will always change, and what their budgets are will keep shrinking. And I'm dyslexic, so maths is, not always my friend. You're trying to work out things fairly for everyone. So then you get a producer to come on and tell you how much stuff should be worth.
And when you're doing your own freelance stuff, have you got an accountant that you work with?
I do now that we've moved to Melbourne to make it easier. In the UK, it was pretty easy just to do. I was self-employed, freelance. It's pretty easy to do my tax return on my own. And I've been doing it for a long enough time while I was in the camera department as well. So it was just like a progression on from that. So that made it easier. But coming to a new country and then having to learn how everything works over here, and you see similarities, but then there's different terminology, which then means the same thing as something else, but you weren't sure. So for the first time, we'll be getting an accountant.
And when you're doing your projects, figuring out a rate, because we're always asked that question, what's your rate? How did you arrive at the rate that you are currently at?
So depending on what the scale of the project is generally what I try and get out of the client first. Like, where's it going to go? How big is it? What do they want out of it as well? That then gives me a rough idea in my head of, okay, it's a television commercial, or it's online promotional, or it's a social. That will then just kind of help you dictate what kind of rate to go for. Initially coming here as well, even though the pound, you get almost double your money in Australia. So for the first few months of my savings from the UK, I was living the life of a king. Now I'm not. So you can't just, also in that sense, just double what your rate was in the UK, because it doesn't translate. It doesn't translate, in the same way over here. There's different variables, there's different economics over here than what we've got in the UK. So then it was just, from my experience, Aussies have been better with me than Brits. Just chatting to people over here and just saying, what rate would you roughly give for this? What rate would you roughly give for that? And just chatting to like a few people to get like a pool of what rates should be for different things.
And hopefully those people are around the same level of experience that you're at as well. And then that gives you a good ballpark of, okay, I should be charging this amount, as opposed to, $500 sounds good, or $1,000 is a nice round number. If you know that other people that have similar experience to you are charging $1,000 or $1,500 for a day or whatever it is, it gives you a bit of peace of mind knowing, okay, well, I'm not overcharging by any means. And then sometimes when you let a client know, or a potential client know, I cost this amount per day, they might get scared off and be like, are you trying to rip me off or something like that? Because my nephew can do it for $200 or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the level of or the quality that you're going for, great, go with the nephew. But if you're wanting something a little bit more polished, well, my rates are my rates.
Yeah, definitely. I've had a few clients this year who have kind of proposed an idea of something that they want. And towards the end of the conversation, at the end of the creative side of it, we'll then get onto the budget, because no one wants to talk budget first. Everyone wants to get the expression of the artistic side and the creative side out of themselves first. And it's all the excitement of, of those things. But then very quickly, I'll just be like, right, okay, we've chatted for that long enough. Before I go off in my head about how amazing we could make this and where I want to, do all these things, what's your money on it? And a lot of people will say, oh, I don't know, how much does it cost? So then it's trying to gauge roughly where they want to place the final piece, the final video, the final film, what they want to do in terms of, is it recurring film? Like if it's a series that they want to be doing and this is the first of many, you don't want to charge too much because you want to be doing lots of them. And if you're doing lots of things, then you'll keep a slightly lower rate because you're doing more of it over time.
Yeah, repeat business is great.
Yeah. But yeah, trying to find that balance with people is tough. In my head, I'm just like, just tell me what your budget is, or tell me what if someone said like, I've got $700 to shoot this thing, I go, great. Okay. If that's your absolute limit, then I'll come back, in a day or two with a proposal of what we could do. You can still do great things on a smaller budget, but it is limited to what you can do. So as long as I know that, again, it's parameters. As long as I know what they are, I can bounce around there, like a hamster in a wheel. It'd be great. And you'll get great things. But yeah, trying to get that balance in that conversation. And also you don't want to scare off then the client by coming back and saying, right, if you do want, an extra camera person, a sound recorder, some lighting, you want props,
hair and
makeup, you've got a presenter coming in, cool. They will need hair and makeup. So it's going to cost you this amount, put a zero on the end, you're probably close to what it will cost. For some clients, and you kind of get a vibe of it, they're going to get scared off by that fairly quickly. What I will then do as well is just say, look, if you do want all this, it will cost that, but let's work out a way of then breaking it down and making it more manageable for what you do have. And now that you know that that's the high end, that's the top bar. And I love finding the top bar anyway. Even if I'm, working with actors on set and we're trying to find a performance, I'll generally get them to try and do a bigger performance first so we know where that top bar is and go, right, never hitting that again. And I think the same with budgets as well. Just hit that top bar and just say, how much can you push before you're in tears and you're broken? And then just start bringing it back down and go, right, well, if we shrink it by a third, that goes away. Are you happy with that? Okay, no. Okay, well, let's get rid of something else, but we still got to shrink it. So then it's negotiating. And I think that's a better place to be in, is negotiating, as opposed to giving a client a budget and then just saying a hard, fast no on things. Like trying to keep that negotiating door open the whole time. Because ultimately you don't want to lose the business because you want the work.
Yeah, unless that low-paying client turns into a nightmare client.
Yeah.
And there's this really counterintuitive thing that I've found in business with being a creative. Initially, you think, the $500 client will be a lot easier to keep happy and would love what you do. But the $5,000 or $10,000 client, that'd be a bit harder to work with and their expectations will be sky high. But what I've learned is it's a lot of the time the other way around. It's the $500 client that expects the world, and the $5,000 or $10,000 client is a lot more easier to meet their expectations. And I think potentially, from my experience, the $500 client, a lot of the time, they're spending their personal money, whereas the $5,000 or $10,000 client, they're using a company's money or a budget that they need to use within a financial year. So they don't have that emotional attachment to the money. So I think that's probably a little bit of insight that I've found over the years working with those two different types of clients. Have you come across that?
Yeah, that it is. Generally, I mean, you get the exceptions.
Yes.
But definitely the more that juicy mid-range where there's a decent amount of money, and if you need to push it up a little bit because they've asked for something else, there's almost no qualms and it gets signed off and it's great. And you still tentatively go in and go, hey, you want this shot? Well, we need to get like a probe lens to get inside this device and that's going to cost us X amount. Great. Data accounts, signed off. But yeah, the smaller budget clients who are spending their own money, there's that emotional
like business
attachment.
owners or stuff like that. They're not necessarily marketing people that as I said before, are using a business's budget.
Those are the ones that generally who will get excited that I will come along and be happy to make a film or video for them. And then, I had a case this year where a week before the shoot, it transpired that there was no budget the whole time. And there was
waste of time.
Oh, it was a month of prep just wasted. And we didn't even get any money back for that. But it was just that thing of, they then wanted to kind of break down the payments into pay us over 4 months. And I was like, no, it's 30 days, just, and when you hear those red flags as well, you don't want to carry on with the project because you just think, hold on, if you're going to start breaking down the payment of the budget it's not just me, but there's other people involved in this as well at various points. Like I know that they've done a job, they're relying on the income of that job to pay their bills. So the moment you start pulling that to pieces, it's just going to affect everyone. And then they're not going to want to work with you again because you're getting clients in who, are a bit dodgy. But yeah, having clients who kind of have these great wild expectations, which initially is great, but then not having an understanding of where money can be spread and how it can be spread just by, simple notions of how easy it is to shoot your own content and make your own films and videos with the phone that's in our pocket, which is great to an extent. But the moment they want to take it from that, home filmed footage to something bigger that's going to go somewhere, not only are those expectations of the scale of the project, they're going that way, but the expectations of the budget doesn't go that way. They think, I spent $1,000 on the phone. Why would I need to spend more than that on a video? Can't we just do it on your iPhone? And I've done a few commercials on my phone.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's what people want because it's more authentic or it looks more user-generated content, which is a big buzzword right now as well.
Totally,
if it's a little too polished, it's not authentic.
Yeah.
So let's use the iPhone, put it in cinematic mode or whatever.
Yeah.
So it looks
It was
nicer.
Painful.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I remember getting a call and saying, "Oh, you've got an iPhone 14." That was the opening part of the phone call, and I thought, "Oh, right, yeah." And I'd shot a comedy sketch on my phone because it was about influencers. We were, having a dig at that kind of influencer nutritional diet culture. It's a great video. People can go and watch it. But because of that, a commercial company said, "Can we use it to shoot a higher-end commercial thing?" And they've all got, they had 15s and the iPhone 6, 16s, all this kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, we can hire a camera. The budget was there. So it was a weird place to be in that, it was a normal budget shoot. We had a crew with us, but the camera that was in front of everyone was my phone. It was on a tripod. It was on a dolly. Even the camera assistant was like, "Shall I press record?" And I was like, "Well, I should probably do something. I've got this phone just filming everything." And I didn't know what to think of it at the time. We shot it. It looked all right. It got, it was fine. But it was that in my head, I would just remember thinking, is this, the jokes of we can just shoot it on our phone. We're now shooting it on our phone. I know, you get Steven Soderbergh's shot a feature film on his phone, and there's other films that are getting shot on iPhones, but they'll have massive attachments of lenses and all these adapters and stuff. But I thought, we're actually getting to that point now where there's higher end budget sometimes for iPhone shot footage. In those terms, sometimes you just got to take the money and just enjoy it while you're there. It's better coffee sometimes and, better catering.
I've heard that recently Apple is using their iPhones to film a lot of their product releases and that kind of stuff, which makes sense from their point of view. But yeah, I watched one recently. I'm like, did they shoot this on an iPhone? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you kind of think, I wonder whether or not they even used the phone and just offboarded it and recorded it somewhere else to a higher scale image. And
yeah, but then they also do have all the extra bits and pieces. I don't know the whole process, but yeah, it's one of those things that you hear and you're like, did they do that?
And then you'll get clients who would have seen that and get excited and go,
wow, I can do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. But they don't see the massive crew behind it and all the, as we said before, hair and makeup and props and all these little things that add up to big things, really.
And I think even, it's not just corporate and commercial worlds, but TV and film, you do get some, like I was saying with Steven Soderbergh shooting a film on an iPhone, you do get more people shooting on it for a certain look. And I think, I've always thought, try and pick the right camera for the look. Don't just pick the camera because you've got an Alexa. Don't shoot everything on Alexa because it might be the wrong look. For a couple of years before we left and came over here, I was shooting on Blackmagics a lot because I really loved the look and it kind of felt like it was appropriate to what we were shooting. And we have a budget for an Alexa, so we could go and get one, but we picked the right look for things. And if the right look was an iPhone, then we shoot with an iPhone. And it's nice for people to see those things and get excited and they can potentially do stuff. But like I was saying, you kind of forget that not only does the scale of your idea grow bigger, the scale of your budget needs to grow bigger as well with that. And if you want to shoot a film on an iPhone, that's great, but we still need crew, we still need production. We then still also need distribution at the end of it. We need marketing. You can't just shoot this thing and just put it on YouTube and just hope the world takes it and go, wow, what a sensation it was. Because, it falls into like a sea of content and it just gets lost. And then all you've done is kind of used up people's time that they could have been using working for money. It's a tricky, delicate balance. You want to, bring in these exciting creative ideas from people, but also as you're getting older as well and you've got more responsibilities and more people to be looking after, you know that you've got to be hitting X amount every month to be doing that. And you don't want to sacrifice that younger version of yourself who was free and wild and, the art student who thought anything was possible. You want to keep that alive because, I'm only 40. I'm not at the other end of the century yet. And keeping that balance with things. But the business side is, as you get older, more and more important. And just, if you've got the figures coming in for it, then you can keep being happily creative.
Yeah. And coming back to the personal money side of it as a creative, when do you know to put your rates up?
That's a good shout. Generally for myself, it has been previously when I was in the camera department, the rates would go up as an industry notion and they would all go up. And it would be hard to kind of push above that until that happens. And that's, you're in a department and there's a structure to it. So that makes sense. But as an individual and a freelancer, then, you can come onto a project and you'd be charging X amount for a good period of time and it's getting you lots of work and it's all coming in. But then, economies rise. You need to be able to keep up with that. Sometimes then things like COVID and we've had Brexit in the UK and lots of other variables that have slowed the work pace down. You then want to be increasing your fee to fill the gaps, but not by too much that then the clients go away because their money isn't increasing too much as well. So it's a tricky, delicate thing to kind of find that balance of when it's time to increase that figure. Generally, what's in a nice way that's happened is that I've been brought onto like a higher end project and they've been offered more money than I would have had before. So I know that then okay, that's more comfortable. I know I now can be charging more for that. And I've now got past shoots and experience and projects where I have shot that. So if anyone says like, oh my God, that's a huge amount of money. Who's ever paid you that? And you go, well, I've got these clients here who've paid for me for it. Then it would just be keeping that balance of knowing then, right, the higher end clients have got more money. So I can charge a bit more because the economy's rising and I need to charge more. And then with the lower end clients, just finding the right time just to kind of slowly increase that. I think sometimes it's just by putting an extra $100 on your day rate, maybe just to test the waters out and just see how that is. And if that works, that's great. Keep that there for a little bit, then just increase it. I think it's just gradual increments as opposed to whacking in an extra 1,000.
Yeah, slow increments I've found probably more digestible for clients to take. I've found that maybe every 6 months or every financial year, you could maybe put your rates up or send through an email to repeat business clients to say, my rates are now this, and then see what the reaction is. So yeah, as you just said, whacking on an extra $1,000, that's probably not too easy to digest unless you've purchased if you're a shooter operator and you've gone from a mirrorless camera to an Arri Alexa or whatever, well, yeah, your rate's going to definitely have to go up. But yeah, other than that, small increments I've found have been the best way to change or to be able to charge more money.
Yeah.
So we've talked about raising rates. When would be an appropriate time, in your opinion, to lower your rates?
Never. No, there are times where you do need to lower it. Back in the UK, there were a few production companies that I was very fortunate to be working with, and we would have some very nice high-end clients. And then some smaller charities and more sort of soulful work coming in. And at that point, you know that they haven't got the biggest budget, but what they are pushing those films and those videos towards is for a bigger and greater cause. They're not selling cans of, soda for X amount of money around the world. They haven't got that. They're trying to do something maybe for someone's mental health, or, for the elderly, or it's some, really notable charity. So at that point, for me as well, I wouldn't really think too much about it. They would say that what their budget was. Generally for those companies as well, they've got someone in marketing. So you've got that nice relationship with someone who knows the reality of what they can expect, but it's just going to be a bigger hit of it. And for those as well, you kind of then trying to just interweave them into your quieter gaps as well, so that you can still do them for them. You're not taking too much of a bigger hit across the span of the month. And then you come out of it and you've made a beautiful thing. You've brought on your expertise of working on higher end content, but for a smaller client, which is something I always try and do, no matter who my client is. My top level is my top level, and I'll bring everything I can to the table. Just because it's a small, lower budget doesn't mean I'm going to work less. I'm still going to bring as much as I can. So I think, for those sort of clients, that's when I quite happily will just, take a lot less money for it, because I know it's going to a better place. I can die a happier person.
Yeah. I think you touched on a really good point. When you have those quieter times, which we all do, we have feasts and famines. If you do find yourself in a quieter time, taking on a lower rate for maybe something that is a passion project, or you can see that there's some good that you can do through that project, it is probably a wise decision to take that job, as opposed to saying, no, my rate is my rate. It really does depend on, I guess, the project, because if it's a corporation that's making lots of money off the video, why would you lower your rate? You wouldn't really want to do that. The only reason I could think of that is it's a great showreel piece or something like that. I've found for me, with some of the projects that I do, I would consider dropping my rate if I can do behind the scenes content and post that on my social media or YouTube. So there's a bit of value coming my way, as opposed to me just taking a hit and charging less, so I can do a video for someone that is potentially or hopefully going to make money off the video that I'm doing anyway.
I think as well, sometimes the scale of the project as well, if it's a lower budget. So if it's, we just need someone for an hour tomorrow, we've got $600. Do you want to turn up and do it? I'm like, in an hour, I'm going to make $600. That's a lot. The one of the best paid shoots I ever did was for a bank in the UK. It was half an hour that we were there. It was full commercial rate. It was focus puller on the job. One of the CEOs of the bank arrived as we were putting the camera on the tripod. The DOP had barely put lights up, and he stood in front of the camera and he said, right, let's go. I just put a memory card in the camera. We pressed record. I was like, God, I think I formatted it. We did format it. He did his thing to camera and he was gone. And within half an hour we were done, and I got paid a full commercial day rate for half an hour. And I was like, that is bonkers that just happened. This is the shortest day I've ever done. So I always just think, if someone needs me for like an hour or 2 hours and it's X amount of money, turn up and do it. It's no skin off my nose to, do something as quick and cheap and turn around as that.
Yeah, it's nice when you get those projects.
Yeah, totally. And then you also don't know whether or not, by doing that, because it is almost like a favor for those clients, you don't know whether or not then they will turn around and say, Will stepped in and just gave us a hand. And we just chucked him a few dollars for it, but now we've got a bigger thing, and he's, we noticed he was good at X, Y, and Z on this. And it's all, without using the word exposure, but it is more exposure to other people and other clients by doing those kind of more favor type shoots. I think it's gauging who it is that you're working with as well as a person. Like, are they going to be pleasant and amenable to what you need to do, or are they going to be really unpleasant and painful to work for in the future? And if it's the latter, then maybe, I'm busy, I can't do it, sorry. And recommend them to someone that you don't like so they get the work.
Yes. Not that we would do that.
No, totally not.
No. Well, thank you, Will, for joining us today on the Your Story Studios podcast and sharing your thoughts on the business side of being a creative.
Thank you very much.